This conference will now be recorded.
Hi everyone, good morning. Are you able to hear me?
Good morning, Madhu.
Good morning. So I hope you are able to see my screen as well.
Yes.
Okay. So let's get going. So this is our 19th uninterrupted session on our Foundations in Machine Learning course. And right now we are actually doing a toy project to build intuition into the most important concept of machine learning, that is model complexity. So in the last session, we started introducing the new paradigm of decision trees, especially to capture in a very natural manner the non-linear relationships that might exist in your input features and target variable. To capture that, a natural model is decision trees. We have looked at how by deploying a new type of data using polynomial terms of the input feature, how we could actually capture the non-linear relationship, especially the curvy relationship, using a linear regression model. But then that is not the best solution for capturing truly non-linear relationships in a natural manner. And that's where we talked about decision trees as a new computational model. And we went through a little bit of conceptual understanding of decision trees. Basically, in a decision tree kind of model, whatever data set that we have, our information that is existing in our table comprising of input features and our target variable, we will pass this data set to an algorithm, decision tree algorithm. Then decision tree, what it does, it actually tries to organize this whole tabular information into a tree structure. It will start at a particular root where it tries to split based on whatever it understood from the data, so that a set of observations can go to the right of that, a set of observations can go to the left of that based on the true false of the split it has taken. And then it will grow the tree branch from branch to branch to branch to finally a leaf where further nothing will move out of that. So we talked about it, basically how decision trees are created. And then from our toy project point of view, we told that a decision tree, without constraining it, if we use it, because decision trees, when you run that algorithm, typically they capture all the data and memorizes all the information that is existing in the table. So it will grow into a very complex big tree, with finally the leaves will have one sample of whatever the target variable. So inherently, if we use that kind of unconstrained decision trees, then actually they don't solve our problem. They create very overfitted kind of models, because they understand the signal as well as the noise, and that is why they may be extremely good when we test them with the same training set that we gave. They will remember. That's why it will almost actually there will be no error between the predicted y and the actual y when you test it with the same data that you have given to train a decision tree. So they build very overfitted models, and that's why they are not useful in any practical machine learning activity. But then there are ways in which we can tune these decision trees and constrain them. And there we talked about two solutions. One solution is take a simple one decision tree based algorithm, then you constrain that tree with a max depth kind of parameter. These are the parameters we externally give these values. When we invoke a decision tree algorithm, we pass an argument called max underscore depth equal to 3 or 4 or 5. That is your choice. But you can constrain the decision tree using this kind of parameters. Again, we looked at another parameter, minimum leaf size equal to whatever number you want to give. So by constraining, we can smoothen out the output produced by decision trees. Okay, and that as a one solution we looked at. But the better solution, the second solution, is build not one tree, but build a group of trees. And that's what we have used a word called ensembling, tree ensembles. Okay, group of trees are created, are built, and we use the outputs of each of these trees and combine them in an interesting way to produce a much more smoothened out output. That's where we started talking about a particular algorithm called random forest algorithm and how it can help us. These are all things we conceptually looked at it, and we stopped before we started our coding section. So today in this lesson, we will quickly go through the coding section. So you will be in the driver's seat now. So take your time, type in the code, and okay. So again, I sent you one file in the last email that is about a library called GraphViz. Have you seen that? Any of you?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Anyway, today we may use it. So let us just get to the coding section. So basically in the previous modules, we have been looking at linear or variations of linear models, that is polynomial regression models. And we have done the coding section as well. In this lesson, we'll be shifting gears and introduce a new paradigm of modeling, that is tree-based models, and we apply them in the coding section now. In fact, we'll be seeing what happens when you are able to crank model complexity way up, and how to again increase the complexity, and then systematically how do I reduce the complexity so that a good model is created. So first do this, you import NumPy as NP, import pandas as PD, then you put this from matplotlib, import pyplot as PLT, percentage matplotlib inline, then import seaborn as SNS, and SNS dot set underscore style strings dark grid. This is our header always. We keep adding to this header more libraries and more algorithms as we start using it. So then you import. Last time we have used linear regression algorithm so far. Now we will use an unconstrained decision tree regressor now. First, this is called decision tree regressor because we are solving a regression problem, because our target variable is a continuous numeric value. That is what we are making a prediction. So that is why we are using a regression algorithm. So if you are doing a classification problem using decision tree, then we have to import decision tree classifier. But right now we are importing decision tree regressor. So these are available in the sublibrary called sklearn.tree. So you have to keep remembering these things, or every algorithm is in its own sublibrary. So you have to import from there. If you have already these things, execute that code cell and be ready. Tell me when you are ready with this, when you have typed, those who are typing the code. Are you ready? Can I move forward? Okay, not a problem.
Father, give me 2 minutes.
Yeah, not a problem.
I'm done, Madhu.
Okay. So anyway,
So 1 minute.
already, yeah, okay.
I'm done, Madhu. Can go.
Okay.
Thank you.
So okay. So basically, you are set now for with all the libraries. Now let us read our data set that we created and saved it in our CSV file. So call it as DF. Every coding section we are doing the same thing. So just copy, paste or type it, but run this so that your DF now holds our simulated data set with one column input feature X and the target variable Y. Okay. So, and just check that the top 5 observations are, you are also seeing the same thing, so that all of us are working on the same simulated data set. Okay. So have you got it? Okay. So let's move on. So the same things we keep doing. So in the last coding section, we wrote this helper function. Okay. So let us copy, paste it into a code cell, run it once. So basically, what is this? This is fit underscore and underscore plot underscore model. There is a typo here. I'll correct it later. But what it does really, it reads our DF as one argument and a model class as one argument. And then inside that function, we are separating out features and target, putting into two different pandas series frames. First one, features, we are getting it by dropping Y from the table, column Y column, and calling it as features. And then Y column, we are assigning it to target. So same thing, whatever we have done, we have put it into the function. Then we, whatever model class is as an argument passed on to this helper function, that model dot fit, and we are passing features comma target X comma Y. Then we are doing the plot. First the scatter plot, all the data points that are there in X and Y as a scatter plot, those blue dotted points. And then we are overlaying for the model X axis, again the X column values, but on the Y this time we are doing Y hat. Y hat is nothing but model dot predict, and we pass the same X values using which we trained the model. Right now we are doing that way. So, and then we are giving it a little bit different color so that a model is overlaid on that, and we are returning the model. This is the helper function. Hope you have copied and pasted and it is working for you. Are you set with this? Are you set with this? Are you able to hear me?
Yes,
Hello?
Madhu. Yes, sir.
Okay. Yeah, because there is no reply, so I thought you are not able to hear me. Just let me, while we are here, I want to correct this also. Okay. So can I move forward?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So now let us use our fit and underscore plot helper function and invoke it to build a decision tree regressor. So how we do, just call it fit underscore and underscore plot underscore model, whichever way you named. Okay, I named this way. So df, I'm passing df is one argument, and I am passing my not linear regression algorithm now. I am passing my decision tree regressor without any arguments, unconstrained. I'm passing it. Okay, so carefully type this D, capital D, tree, T is capital and R is capital. There is no space and parenthesis open and closed. Okay, you invoke your fit and plot model. You pass on the XY table that we have, our DF, and then the model that the class algorithm class we are going to use is decision tree regressor. Okay, so if you have done it, let me know. And if you got this plot.
Yes, I got it.
Okay, so basically what we did, we actually fitted our data to an unconstrained decision tree regressor and plotted the model. So the black dotted lines are the predicted whatever y hat calculated from this particular algorithm after fitting our data. Then if you look at it, it seems like the model has perfectly memorized the training data. That is what an unconstrained decision tree will do. If you, in fact, if you calculate, like we have in our table now, x is there, y is there. Now this dotted line based on this decision tree regressor has done it. Now let's say I use this model and predict my y hat, predicted y. So x has a value, y has a value. So using decision tree algorithm, if I predict y hat, all these things for separate x, everything will be same because actual y is remembered for every observation, and that is what is being predicted when you give that particular x value. Okay, so it seems like the model has perfectly memorized the training data. As you can see, the predicted values perfectly match the actual values from dataset. And this is not typically a good thing. It's a overfitted model. This is not a very useful model at all because it picked up all the noise in the data, because we have created a noisy sine wave and it actually remembered even the noise, and so it will go wrong when we give a brand new test data. Actually, though it is all perfectly okay with the training data, whatever your x and y hat, this is your training data, but let's say we give a brand new data of x and y, it will be going wrong in many times in a very big way. So this is a not a good model, but we told we can tune these things. Okay, we can constrain these trees. Anyway, let us check for ourselves. So to confirm, let us display the total difference between actual y values, that is y, and the predicted y hat values. Okay, so if you do that in our df.y, okay, our table has x, y. So y, I'm calling it as actual y here. Okay, and predicted y is nothing but we are using model dot predict here, and what we have to pass, we have to pass the features, but that's what we are really doing here. You can make one more step, features, and before this you can put features equal to df dot drop y comma x is equal to 1, and then instead of this predict with this same thing, you can actually give here your predict features. If you find that is easy, do that. But if you check that, basically what we are doing, we are actual y is this one, actual y, and we are letting the model that has been built using this data to calculate for every x a y hat value, and we are seeing the difference between actual underscore y and predicted underscore y, and I am using wherever absolute I'm using. In case there is a difference plus minus, I'm making it to everything to positive. But what is that? There is no difference between actual y and predicted y. Throughout all the columns, 100 columns, this y hat, the difference between y hat and y is all 0. So both of them are same. Okay, because it has memorized each y and predicted the same thing. Did you try this? Can I move forward?
Madhu, give me a minute. I'll just-
Okay, okay. Done.
Madhu, it says for me, model is not defined.
So you have done the previous steps. You got this.
Yeah,
Did you
I
get
got
this
it.
or not? Okay.
Yes, I got
Then
it.
model is not defined. Are you using predicted underscore y model dot predict? Any spelling is there? Mistake is there?
Correct
You
only.
will be making only spelling mistakes. There will be no issue at all. Okay. They will be only related to spelling mistakes. Okay. Let me go to my code. Okay. So I also have written the same thing. Okay. I am invoking my sklearn.tree. Then I am reading my simulated data set. I copied and pasted whatever we have done as a helper function. Then an unconstrained decision tree model has been done. I named it as model here. Okay, that's why I am using model dot predict. Earlier we used to use lm dot. Okay, if you have copy pasted and still the lm is there, it has to be model now. Okay, and this is the model created. So here I am running that step. Okay, so basically actual underscore y is df.y. Features I am getting it because see here in this helper function we have split it. So outside the function it will not have the scope. That is why I have not used features, because features variable is declared, at least in this particular code cells, only in the function. That is why I'm doing again here explicitly, because once the function is executed, the scope of that variable will be gone. So you cannot use that variable. So that is why we are using, anyway, we have used like this predicted y. I just commented it, but what really we have done is that features equal to df dot drop y axis equal to 1. So we have separated out features, and predicted y I am calculating using model dot predict, passing the features, that is x column I am passing, and y 100 values of y I calculated. I am comparing actual y, predicted y, using this np dot absolute actual underscore y minus predicted underscore y, so that there is no difference. Okay, neither negatives nor positive difference is there, and sum of all the columns, 100 columns I am doing, it is 0. That is the idea. Got it? Whoever asked me that I am not getting, did you get it or not?
Yeah, Madhu, Amir here. I got it. Thank you, Madhu.
Okay, okay. So most of the times it is your typing mistakes. So just think it, it will be gone. Okay. Anyway, in summary, the unconstrained decision tree is an overfit. Okay, because for all the x and y, it has started remembering. Because the decision tree was unconstrained, it was allowed to make as many splits as it wanted to. Okay, in typically what decision tree of this nature will do is that, where is my okay, so if you look at our df dot head, this is our x and y. This unconstrained decision tree, how it remembers, it makes a split for x. Now the first value to remember, it makes a split of x less than 0.06347. This is the split it will do to remember this 0.086260 of the first value. To remember the second observation here, actually it makes a split on the third row, that is here. It tells that x is between this and this. Okay, then predict 0.14. In that way, actually it starts splitting and quickly creates a way to remember, and that is why it is able to remember. Okay, if you just to see that. Okay, let me go back here. So anyway, it is no use. So now what we will do is that again, I have sent you this GraphViz, and on your Jupyter notebooks you have to install this. Okay, I don't know how many of you have installed this. Anybody installed this GraphViz?
Madhu,
Yes, sir. Installed.
Installed. Okay.
yeah, Madhu,
Those okay, go
Madhu, I
on.
have not
Who is
installed.
talking?
Madhu Raju here.
Raju. Okay.
So,
So anyway,
I'm trying to follow the instructions in the document you have provided, but I'm not finding this GraphViz when I typed.
Okay, so you are installing from your Jupyter that UI, or you installed using the command line?
No, from Anaconda, the instructions what you have provided. Yeah, Anaconda.
So you are having Mac machine or a Microsoft machine?
Microsoft.
Okay. Anyway, if that is not you working, just go to the command prompt and run those two command line instructions to install.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
Okay. Anyway, don't worry, even if you are not able to run this. Okay, but this is just to visualize internally what is happening. So within this sklearn.tree algorithm, some functions Python community has developed. So using these functions, what we can do is that we can visualize the trees. Okay, so we can create from a particular tree structure a PNG file and save that PNG file to your file system, and you can go click on the PNG, zoom it and see, just for developing your own understanding how the tree has been developed. Okay, so what I will do is that at the end of this class, I will send you, along with the session recording, I will send you the IPYNB file also, whatever I have done. So in that, this code will be there to kind of make that code run on your machine. You follow the instructions to install GraphViz library on your Anaconda system. then it will work. Even if it doesn't work, don't unnecessarily waste your time. This is not that important. This is just a little bit excitement to see some trees. That's it. Okay. So anybody who has it, try it, but let us not spend too much time, because this code just copy pasted and it will work just to see the. So basically, we are importing this export underscore GraphViz library from sklearn, and then also we are importing some source thing also. Library allows us to render the diagram in Jupyter Notebook, the diagram, whatever it is doing it. So those two things we have done. Then we have written one plot and save decision underscore tree, one helper function we are writing. This function, what it does, whatever model has been created. Now previously we talked it as model. Okay. Okay. So this model and the out file name. So it will create, this whole function will create a PNG file and returns that PNG file to your file system. So it will show you the depiction of your tree. When I send this code, you can try it yourself and play with it. But when I run this helper function for our XY table, for this model, that is our unconstrained decision tree regressor, this is the tree that has been formed. Anyway, it is not in the Jupyter inline, it is not appearing well, but in the working directory where you are running all this, you can go and open there. Actually, this graph files will be there, .png files. You can open them and see for yourself what logic has been applied to create this tree. So don't worry about that. Okay. So I will send you the code. Now let us get back to our understanding. So we talked actually, this constrained decision trees are more important, more useful than unconstrained decision tree. So we talked about two solutions. One solution is constrain the decision tree, and second solution is use a forest. These are the two things we talked. Now let us try with the constraining. So the first solution to overfitting decision trees is to constrain the decision trees. So remember, the reason the unconstrained decision tree becomes overfit is because it is allowed to keep branching until it ends up with one leaf per observation. By default, an unconstrained decision tree tries to remember every observation. That is why it keeps on branching to infinite levels, and finally it only stops when it has remembered the final value of y in a particular leaf node. Okay. So there are different ways to constrain a decision tree. We talked, one is using max depth, another is min leaf size. Okay. So the first common way is to constrain the decision tree is using max depth parameter. So when we invoke decision tree regressor, you pass on an argument max underscore depth equal to whatever number you want to give, and that will constrain the decision tree to grow only to that depth. In other words, we can constrain the maximum number of levels the tree is allowed to branch down by using this parameter. So if we set a max depth of 3, it means the tree is only allowed to branch down 3 times before it must arrive at a prediction. So it is not allowed to grow infinitely. It will be allowed to grow only 3 depths down. Okay, that is what we are doing here. So now call this model 2 now. Model 1 was, model is actually unconstrained. So let us create a model 2 and use our fit underscore and underscore plot underscore model, the same helper function, pass our df, and again pass our decision tree regressor algorithm. But this time you pass an argument to this algorithm, a parameter max underscore depth equal to 3. Okay, and you will get this kind of plot when you run this step. Okay, so tell me when anyone got it. Did you get this?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So you can see the difference from the unconstrained to constrained by max depth. The difference appears to be night and day. The unconstrained decision tree was completely overfit, whereas the constrained decision tree by depth, it appears to approximate the sine wave fairly well. We know the underlying is a very pure sine wave, but in spite of this new model paradigm, it is trying to capture that underlying pattern using a step kind of sine wave. Okay, so it's a big improvement happened by just constraining it by max depth. This is one solution, okay, to constrain and get better results. Now let us use so again, if you use our graph, once you have the graph thing, I'll send you the code, then you plot and save decision tree, or whatever the helper function we wrote, this model 2. What is the tree graph png file? This is the one. If you look at here, because we constrained by depth, so this is the first level, this is the second level, this is the third level. Below this, it did not allow it to grow, and that is how it has done that. Okay, you can see all the graphs as you create with different kind of, if you give max depth equal to 5, it will allow 4 and 5 also. You can see the graph, and the result will be little different. It will be little bit more overfit than what you have seen just now. Okay, so we also talked about constraining a single decision tree using minimum leaf size. Okay, minimum leaf size. So another common way to constrain decision trees is to set a minimum number of samples that each leaf must have. We talked about max depth. Now we are talking about minimum leaf size. So this will guarantee a minimum number of observations in each terminal node, final node, and avoid the situation where each leaf only has one observation. If you restrict it with 5, so up till 5, once a particular node reaches minimum leaves equal to 5, it stops there, it doesn't grow further. That is how we are constraining it. So now call this model 3, and you use same helper function, fit and plot model. You pass your df as the first argument. Second argument, again your decision tree regressor, but this time you pass min underscore samples underscore leaf. This is how the argument is named. Okay, minimum leaf size is min underscore samples, all small, okay, underscore leaf. Okay, this is small. So you invoke this helper function by passing these arguments. So right now you are constraining it in a different way than you have constrained earlier with max depth. Okay, have you done it?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so this, if you see the way it has created the model, it is much better than anyway your unconstrained decision tree, but it is different than how it produced for max depth. Max depth it produced like this, whereas minimum leaf size, it, because minimum leaf size equal to 5 means depth will be more actually. So notice how this tree is constrained in fundamentally different way than the depth constrained one. This tree is allowed to have as many branches as needed, as long as each leaf still has at least 5 samples. We can print this graph also and see for yourself. In my coding section, I will show you once this is over. Okay, now while we are doing this constraining, you may be wondering, so how do I know for which particular parameters it will work. Is it 3, max depth equal to 3 or 4 or 10, or minimum leaf size is 5 or 12 or 100? How do I know? That is the big question. As you might have noticed, we needed to set these structural settings before fitting the model. Okay, so we are passing at the time of invoking this algorithm, we are passing these variables or arguments. These are typically called hyperparameters. Okay, that means the algorithm did not learn this directly from the data. In our previous linear regression algorithms, we just passed to our model the data, and it has figured out what are the betas for that. Those betas, we call it as model parameters. They are computed by the algorithm for that particular data set. Whereas here, to tune the algorithm, we are passing some arguments which are critical, and these are called hyperparameters. These are called hyperparameters instead of standard model parameters. Beta 0, beta 1, beta 2, those are all model parameters. They are computed by your algorithm for that particular data set you that passed. Okay, so those are different. Whereas these are externally given by the machine learning engineer to tune the particular algorithm to be used in a particular way. So these are called hyperparameters. Keep this in mind. Hyperparameters, one word we are using. Model parameters, we have used it for betas. Distinguish between these two. Don't get confused about them. So then in your mind it may be coming, how do we really find the best values for which parameter to use, which hyperparameter to use, and for that hyperparameter, what is the best value I have to give? So that process is called tuning, the process of selecting the optimal hyperparameters, because we don't know. Then we have to keep on giving and seeing. So it's an endless game. So to do that in a smart way, we use something called tuning process. So when we do our project, the real project, when we do next, we will use some facilities that we have in our scikit-learn library to select hyperparameters, and using those hyperparameters, how do we tune it in a some cross validation, using that cross validation method. So don't worry, whatever I'm talking now, we will do all that. Only at this point I want you to in your mind, you may be thinking right now, so how do I know which parameter with what value is the best value? So how do I know? Yes, we have a way to know, and that process is called tuning. Okay, so keep that, hyperparameters and tuning. Okay, can I go forward?
Yes,
Any
Madhu.
questions? Okay,
Yes.
fine. Please ask me any questions in case you are. So now the second solution, we talked about overfitting by unconstrained decision tree is use not one tree, but use a forest or many trees. That is where this whole new algorithm comes, and that is called random forests algorithm. Okay, so the second solution to overfitting decision trees is to ensemble the decision trees. These are called tree ensembles. Okay, there are two ways in which ensembles happen. One is random forests and another is gradient boosted trees. We are not talking about gradient boosted trees right now. We'll talk when we do the project. Right now we are only telling the second solution using only random forests. Okay, this is the process of combining predictions from many constrained decision trees. Instead of one data set, creating one tree and constraining that one tree and finding better results, that is what we took it as a first solution. Here the second solution is, don't really depend on one tree. From your one data set, create many trees and let those many trees be constrained in a particular way, and then let them produce the predictions, and then you use those predictions to combine those predictions to smoothen it out and produce one better predictions from that group of trees. That is the concept for random forests. In general, tree ensembles perform very well in practice. Okay, they are really winning models a lot of times, and they tend to perform very well across many types of problems. We will cover them in much more detail in the projects when we do it, both classification as well as regression. So random forests, what they do, they train multiple decision trees in parallel and then combine their predictions into a single decision tree. That is what the whole operation of combining by taking parallel predictions from parallel trees and producing a one output, that whole process in machine learning terminology called bagging process. So random forests use that process. Each individual tree, decision tree within the forest is only trained on a randomly selected subset of observations. Like right now, we have our X and Y, only these are there. And we have, this is the data with which we are training our simulated data set. Okay, I have 1 to 100. Okay, all this data. So now what random forest algorithm does is that while creating more trees out of this, it will create one tree randomly with these 10 observations, one tree, tree 1. Then it will pick up another here, tree 2, like that, another here, tree 3. So by default, when you call a random forest regressor, it will by default do 10 trees. You can increase that number. Okay, but again, it not only does observations. Let's say I have more features like that, not 1x, but actually I have x1 to x100. Then it will randomly pick up some observations as well as randomly pick some features and makes multiple trees. Keep that in mind. Okay, so random forests train multiple decision trees in parallel and then combines the prediction that we talked. Each individual decision tree within the forest is only trained on a randomly selected subset of observations. In practice, this has the effect of smoothing out their predictions and safeguarding against overfitting. Okay, so first we will need to import another class from scikit-learn called random forest regressor to run this. Earlier we used decision tree regressor, that is default algorithm. Now we are using from an ensembled algorithm. So we have to go to from sklearn dot ensemble, not tree now, dot ensemble, and import random forest regressor. So type the same thing because this is the name, R capital, F capital, another R, regressor also is capital. So you import this, then only you can use it. So please do that and tell me when I should move to the next slide. Done it?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so now you imported, let us use it now. Okay, so we are using straight away the random forest regressor. So I'm calling this model as RF model. Okay, and I'm again using my fit and plot model. I'm passing my DF, and now I am actually, the model class is different, random forest regressor, because random forest regressors use lot of random selections of observations and features. If you have to get same results every time you run it, or if all of us have to get the same result as we are executing, we have to always pass this argument random underscore state to make it little bit consistent, because a lot of things happen randomly inside the choices of which features, which observations. Okay, so we talked in the NumPy, so inside this NumPy it will be working. So all of us to get the same kind of picture, you select random underscore state equal to 1 to 3, because I have done run with 1 to 3. You also run with 1 to 3. Then we will get, if you use little different will be come for you. Okay. So this is basically an unconstrained random forest. We are not constraining it, just we are running that with our data. You got this picture?
Yes, Madhu.
Okay, so this picture is different than our unconstrained decision tree. It is much more smoother, but it appears like it has picked up a lot of noise. Okay, so one note is that we need to set a random state or a random seed for the algorithm in order to obtain replicable results. Keep remembering always whenever you're using random forest regressors. Again, it is because random forest train each tree on a randomly selected subset of observations as well as features. Okay. Then as you can see, this has the effect of smoothing out the predictions in relation to a default unconstrained decision tree. If you look at it, our default unconstrained decision tree look like this, whereas default unconstrained random forest regressor is looking something like this. They are little different. Okay. So now let us constrain this random forest regressor maybe with minimum leaf, or let us do with minimum leaf. Okay. So what we are doing here is that let us fit random forest with trees constrained by leaf size. Okay. So call this constrained underscore RF. Okay, the same thing, cut and paste, but when you are calling random forest regressor, you pass on this argument also, min underscore samples underscore leaf equal to 5. So we are letting the tree, each of the 10 trees, because by default random forest regressor will create 10 trees. Okay, all those 10 trees will be grown up to the leaf where minimum sample leaf equal to 5. Okay, to that depth only it will grow. So, and also pass random underscore state equal to 1 2 3. Okay, do this and tell me when this you got this picture or not.
Yes, sir. Got it.
Okay, so by constraining a random forest algorithm, we are getting very good results. It's not, we know the underlying actually the relationship is sinusoidal, but in spite of using such a model, we are actually able to get a very good, this particular algorithm is understanding the true underlying relationship in a significantly good way. Notice how the random forest smooths out the predictions compared to a single decision tree constrained the same way. We actually minimum leaf size we have constrained here, minimum samples for a single tree. This is the output. Now we have used 10 trees and smoothed out using the bagging process. So it has significantly improved. Okay. So this is a result of combining predictions from 10 different trees that are each trained on partial data. So with that, we are getting very good result. Okay. So now actually we are 5 minutes to 10. One more step we have to do in our toy project. So far what we have done in our toy project, we have just used our data set X and Y, then we have built models, and then we have built many models now, and we are plotting and seeing the pictures, and based on our visualization, we are telling this is better, this is not so good. But in reality, in real work, we will not judge models using the pictures we have generated, because it's a very simple data set. We are able to see visually, but real data will have many input features, much more complex way. Even we cannot visualize using pictures. So only way to really tell a particular model is a good model or not, or which is better model, using some empirical evaluation. We have to use some metrics. Okay. And then also right now, what we have done so far is that we have X, Y. We have, this is the training data. Okay. I have 1 to 100 X's for that Y. Using this, we are training. Okay. And it is creating a model after we are training. Whatever model paradigm we have used, it created a model. And to predict, again, we are giving the same table. The same table is given to predict. In reality, we don't do that. So we are calculating Y hat, the predicted value, using the same data using which we trained, and we are calculating Y hat and plotting it. In reality, we don't do that. This is only just to build our intuition of how the model is being created. We are doing. In reality, what we will do is that we will have this kind of X and Y data that is not used to train, but only to evaluate or to test. We have a separate data. Okay. So this data has not been used to train this model. When we built this model, only this data is used. Now to test this model and see the empirical evaluation, we pass a new data. This is called test data. Okay. So that is how real projects will work. So real projects, whether it's a good model or not so good model, is evaluated using some numbers, and those numbers are collected by using another data that has not been used at the time of training and collecting Y hat, that's how, and calculating it. So that, okay, is the last topic that we have to cover in our toy project. With that, our toy project will be over. Maybe it's already 10 o'clock, so I can do this. In fact, I thought today I will do at least conceptual part of this today, but it is already 10, so we will do the next session, that is on Friday. But let me go back to my code thing, and whatever we have done, again one more time, let us repeat. So we have done this. Okay. Then we have built from our unconstrained decision tree regressor, one single tree, we have used our data, simulated data, and our helper function, and then we plotted, fitted and plotted for that our data an unconstrained decision tree model, and we saw that it is not, it is actually a overfit. It started memorizing the whole observations. Okay, so that is what we proved it by seeing what predictions it is making on the same X data. So Y, actual Y and predicted Y is same. Okay, there is no difference. So it remembered every observation. So how it is remembering these observations? It is remembering their observation by carefully splitting each to, like here, the first observation is X equal to 0, Y equal to 0.086260. To remember that, it went to the second row, and less than that, it told this. For remembering the next value of Y, 0.881165, what it did, it actually created a split between this and this of X. X is actually in between 0.063467, and X is in between 0.126, two values. Then Y equal to 0.881. Like that, it actually puts a logic and builds to remember. So that is what decision trees will do. Then anyway, we have used this graph. It's a tool to visualize our trees. So I'm running this helper function as well. So when I see a particular model I'm creating here using unconstrained decision tree, I created and called it as a model. That model's underlying decision tree I want to see that. Okay, here I want to print it. Inline also I am able to print. In fact, it will save one file, tree_graph will be saved in your file structure also. Okay, so this is the tree, unconstrained tree, using which we are doing predictions. So that is one. Then we talked about solutions. One is constraining by max depth. So we ran the model 2. Now I'm using same one tree based decision tree regressor, but only constraining by how much depth I'm allowing it to grow. Then it has created a much better model. Okay, then if I see the graph, I can see now it has allowed only 1, 2, 3 depths only. So that is what the constraint we have put, and because of that constraint, even the single tree decision tree algorithm behaved very well and created much better than an unconstrained one. Okay, then what we did, okay, we told fine, let me actually not play with max depth, let me play with minimum sample leaf. Okay, and I set it at 5. Then another type of variation happened in my smoothing out. Okay, and if I look at the tree, how it has been constrained, so if you look at it, it allowed the depth. Only thing is that final node, wherever it stopped, like here for example, final node it stopped samples 5, so less than sample equal to 5 it did not grow. Okay, here sample equal to 9, below 5 there is no node. Okay, so that is how we have constrained this tree. Okay, and this has produced this kind of result. Okay, then we told the second solution is not one tree. Actually, let us use the data and use a different algorithm called random forest algorithm and build more trees and run that. Okay, so by default, random forest regressor will start with 10 trees. You can actually increase it by passing another argument called, I think, n_estimators. You can do 50, 200, whatever you can want to do, you can do. Okay, but we are using default mode. Then I fitted now my random forest regressor. Then again random forest regressor without any constraint. Okay, if it is much different than our constrained single decision tree, but it has created basically 10 trees. You can see all the trees now using your graph viz. Okay, so you have let us say it has created rf.estimators_0, that is your first tree. Like that up to 9 it will be there. So each tree you want to print and see, you can see this is the first tree with unconstrained, but like this it has created 10 trees. You can see all the 10 trees, they will be different than each other. Okay, randomly picked up observations and splits will be different, everything will be different. But anyway, I'm stopping at 2. Now what I'm doing here is that I'm constraining my random forest regressor with minimum leaf size equal to 5. So I'm calling it with min_sample_leaf 5. You can play with it. Max depth also you can add to this, play with many things. Everything is possible. But again, every random forest regressor we have to give this random_state to make it kind of repeatable. So when we run this, okay, a much smoother model has been created. And again, these 10 trees that are created by constraining minimum leaf size will be far more different. Okay, if you look at it, this is the first tree. If you want to see the second tree, it will be different. Okay, but it will be again constrained by minimum leaf size. So like that 10 trees of different tree structures have been created and parallelly predictions are made, and all those predictions have been used to smooth out a one single prediction, and that has resulted in this kind of thing. You can play with it and do more and more. So basically what we did so far is that we are trying to understand this whole concept of model complexity, and we are trying to build an intuition. So we took a data set, that underlying relationship we knew because we created the data set, but in reality most of the in any data set we will not know what is the underlying relationship. That is what we have to really find out. But here, because it is a toy, we did it. But to make it real, we added a little bit of noise there. And then using that noisy sine kind of data set, we started with a simple model, mean model, without any complexity at all. We told it's a very underfit model. Then we used a simple linear regression algorithm, which can only understand straight lines, slanted lines. We told it is an underfit. Then we used the linear regression model, but applied polynomial terms into our tables. We engineered those features. And because of the polynomial features of x square, x cube, we could identify the curvy relationship using linear regression algorithm. Then what we did, it started understanding slope. Then we increased the polynomial order to x cube. Then we really got a very good fit model. Then we increased to x to the power of 4, x to the power of 5, x to the power of 10. Then we saw slowly it started becoming more and more overfit and started picking up the noise. And then we stopped our linear regression paradigm there, because we told if we have to really truly understand the non-linear relationship in a natural manner, we have to change this whole computation model from mathematical mapping functions to some decision tree kind of models. That's where we came, and we looked at how unconstrained decision trees builds models. They are very, very complex overfitted models. Then using some strategies, we are able to fine tune the outputs produced by unconstrained decision trees. So one solution we told, single tree, but constrain using some parameters like max depth, min leaf size. And then we took another solution that don't use one tree, use a number of trees, let them produce parallelly lot of outputs and build. That's what we call random forest regressors. And we use them in an unconstrained way, and then we used it by constraining it. So we have seen all these things, how we are playing with that model complexity issue. And then this is the real thing now. And when we do real projects, we have to figure out a way to build many models with many different algorithms, with many different settings and tuning, and then build all of them, and then empirically evaluate using a test set. All those things we have to do. So still in our toy project, one step we haven't done, that is evaluate these models in an appropriate manner. So far we are doing with the same training data, x and y, we are training, and the same data is being used to calculate y hat and comparing the difference between y hat and actual y. We will not do that way now. We will create another testing set data, and we build a model using training set. We test the model using testing set and compare our actual versus predicted, and then we calculate some metrics and tell out of these 10-12 models we created which is the winner. That is what we have to do. That is going to be our final step in our toy project. So we will complete it on Friday. Okay, so far you have any questions, please let me know. Any questions? Any questions, friends? Should I hang up?
No, sir, no question.
Okay, so if no one has any questions, so see you on Friday. Till that time, learn and have fun. Have a wonderful day to everyone. Bye bye.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.